I always had a thing for the weird and the uncanny and the just kind of strange, for stuff that just doesn't fit into normal life and that you probably wouldn't really stumble upon if you just lived your life day to day, you know? I've been into like weird, strange literature for quite a long time. And I would like to show you some of the weirdest that I have in my collection. I'm not gonna go over like super famous books like The House of Leaves is not gonna be in here because everybody probably knows about it or talks about it. And yeah, well anyways, I'll show you some books. Some of these are a bit more well known. Some of these I have never seen on BookTube before. And let's just go through them. I have 6 books and a little special secret bonus book that I show in the end. So I'll start with a German one again. Der unsichtbare Apfel, the invisible apple. Sadly, I don't think this has been translated to any other languages. I read this when I was about 17, I guess. The first sentence says, "This sentence is a lie." And then it says, "This sentence is true." And as you can see, there's like a little thing here. And so the whole shtick with this book is that you can read it in different ways. You can just read it like you would read a normal book and it would make perfect sense. Well, that's a stretch to call it that, but you can also read it in a spiral pattern. So you start with the first chapter, then you read the last one, then the second one, and the one before the last one, and so on, and then you end in the middle. And I have read this both ways, and it's a very confusing book. So the author is he's not like a super famous guy in Germany, but he's got his hand in many pies, as you say. He's an actor, and I think he's most successful as a musician and a rapper. I guess you would call it conscious rap, but more weird. It's really weird music. I was into it when I was like in 10th grade. Don't listen to him that much anymore. His band is called the Tentacles of Delphi. And he's obsessed with spirals and circles. That's like all throughout his body of work. That's like his thing. And so this book is about a guy who doesn't really fit into society, who doesn't really belong. And he wants to, he likes counting things. He counts like the specks of dust on his ceiling and stuff, and that's like his whole thing. And then he wants to spend, is it 100 days? I think it's 100 days in silent darkness, without sound and without light. And then this whole psychedelic journey starts where he gets, he meets all these people and these entities, and maybe I should reread it sometime. Also, you have stuff like this here. You have some weird formatting things going on. And I'm sorry that it hasn't been translated. But if you are German, I know I have a bunch of German viewers and you haven't heard of this. This is definitely a nice psychedelic joyride around weird places and with weird characters. And it does have some philosophic thoughts, so it's Next up, I talked about this before, The People of Paper by Salvador Plascencia. This is kind of the book that introduced me to what is possible in literature, in experimental literature. I also talked about this in a previous video. This guy, the author is Mexican, And I don't know, it's not easy to find a lot of information about him, and the last time I checked, this book was out of print, so if you can get your hands on it, definitely do, because it really is something quite special. You basically have columns throughout most of the book, and you have Saturn, which is called the alter ego of the narrator, and he kind of breaks the fourth wall all throughout this book. And it's you have these people of this little village, and they realize that this guy is writing about them, and they, yeah, I don't think that's a spoiler. They don't want him to write about them, so they try to. I'm trying to find a part. Yeah, they're trying to censor their own thoughts so that he. This looks like that, and it's all throughout this book. So that he can't look at their thoughts again. And meanwhile, you have kind of this parallel story of the narrator in real life, who's just like this sad, pathetic guy who can't get over a breakup. And yeah, I read this at least twice, and I would definitely read it again. It's really something quite unusual. Then, next up, we got Ice by Kavan, which is also something I would like to reread this year. I think I read it twice. So basically, Kavan is the name of this woman, but it's not her real name. Actually, she got this name from one of her characters from one of her early novels. And she has quite a dramatic biography. And basically, her therapist introduced her to drugs, and she was actively on heroin while she wrote this book. So you probably get kind of an idea what to expect here. You have the plot is basically you have this male main character and this female character, and they have a very ambiguous relationship, but it's definitely not a healthy one. He kind of chases after her, and she flees from him, and the characters kind of like flow into each other sometimes. Sometimes you lose track of who is who, and this is a masterclass on how to write an unreliable narrator. This is what really struck me when I read this book. How hard it is to write a good unreliable narrator, and how it works throughout the story. And you have this character called the Warden, and then sometimes you don't really know what perspective you're reading, and it's very lucid. It feels like you're reading someone's dream, and it's set in this apocalyptic world where the ice is taken over and everything is freezing. And they also have to flee from the ice, and it's very psychedelic, very, very dreamy, very weird, and quite dark also. But this is actually one of my favorite books of all time. Might do a video on that soon, but this is definitely a masterpiece in my opinion. Next up, we got a Marquez. We got Der Herbst des Patriarchen, which is the fall of the Patriarch in English. And this is I don't know why this is not more commonly known, because I've never really seen it on YouTube. But this, in my opinion, belongs like on every like list of like weird, hard to read literature, like right between James Joyce and Thomas Pynchon and I don't know who else, you know, all those names. I haven't read everything by Marquez, but this is probably his weirdest novel. It tells the biography of this patriarch, but it tells it backwards and at different times, and you have a whole lot of things going on at the same time. So you have 3 chapters, and every single one of them starts with the death of the patriarch, and then it goes backwards, but it goes through different things that happen through different time periods. Then you also have like a body double, and sometimes they also get like mixed up in the narration, and you don't know who's who. And then probably the most notable thing is the like super duper long sentences. I remember I read this for the first time, I think like 6 years ago, when I was working in a bakery, and I would get a half an hour lunch break, and sometimes I couldn't even finish a single sentence during my half an hour break. So yeah, I think the last chapter, if I remember correctly, is just one sentence. So it goes on for like, well, I don't know exactly how many pages, but I think it's like this long. This is like one sentence right there. So yeah, and then also you have things like he changes the narrative perspective in the middle of a sentence. Like one infamous sentence where he tells the story from the Patriarch's perspective, and then from his mother's perspective, and then from the we perspective of like onlookers who see what's going on, and all without ending the sentence. So it's very, very experimental. It's very, very hard to read also, but in my opinion it's definitely worth it. You also have this, this magical realism element going on there with because they say the Patriarch is about 230 years old, which that's also an aspect of this. And yeah, if you like a challenge, if you like magical realism, and if you like Garcia Marquez, then please read this. It's definitely something to check off your bucket list and brag to people about. Then the last two are a bit more well known. This is Minnow P, which I also talked about before. So this is about a fictional island, and they have a statue of the guy who came up with that sentence that features every letter of the alphabet. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And then one day the letters start falling off the statue, and then the government bans the use of that letter for everybody under penalty of death, which is crazy. And so it's quite funny because it's letters, which kind of has a double meaning here, but it is an epistological I don't know how to say that, but it's written in a series of letters, and then you see towards the end the letters get weirder and shorter, and they have to try to write the words with the letters that they have left. And in the beginning, well, I'll let you figure out which letters are left in the beginning. Elino P by Dunn. And then this was actually one of my favorite books that I read last year. If on a Winter's Night a Traveler by Italo Calvino. So you probably heard about this book if you're watching this video. You have this guy, this traveler. Well, actually, you don't really know anything about the main character, and you don't really get a lot of information throughout the whole book. He just kind of finds a book, and it's very intriguing, and he really gets into it, and then it just kind of stops. It just cuts off, and it's a misprint. It wasn't printed properly. And then he goes to the bookshop, and he's like, something is wrong with this book. And then the clerk is like, well, actually it's not even the book that you thought, it's like a different book. They also messed up the cover. And then he finds the next book, and guess what happens with that? And it's just a series of chasing down this writing and this trying to find out what this book is, and it keeps changing, and he keeps chasing all these people. And then there's also this female character, and it's a really weird, lucid, dreamlike narrative, very, very postmodern, and definitely I think it's a good place to start if you want to get into really weird literature, because it keeps a normal format. It's quite comprehensible while being really weird. So this is that. Excuse me. My camera ran out of battery and then I had to go to work. So it is now quite a bit later in the day. But I saved the most special one for last. It's the biggest book that I own physically. And probably also the most expensive one. I think this was like 70 euros. It's the Codex Seraphinianus by Luigi Serafini. And it's not a novel, it is more of an art book. And when you flip through it, you'll see some... Can you even see this? You'll see some drawings reminiscent of maybe Dali a little bit. Very surrealist stuff. And it seems to be some kind of encyclopedia of a place that... like another dimension or another planet or something like that. You know, like listings like this, you get leaves and stuff. And when you take a closer look, you'll see that the language that it's written in is very unfamiliar and is in fact completely made up. And well, I heard that this was basically a lifetime project of someone called Luigi Serafini. And that some people have tried to decipher this language, but I don't think there's much to decipher personally. Because I heard that what he wanted to resemble with this is, well, showcase his art, of course, but also kind of give the reader, I guess, or the spectator, the feeling of that childlike wonder of a little kid that's flipping through some sort of encyclopedia that doesn't know how to read yet, and just to have that childlike feeling of flipping through a book, and the size really matches that. And I've had this for many years, and I've sat down with friends and just like flipped through this like in silence, because there's so much to see and so much to discover and so much to, you know, think about what this might be, what it could mean. And it's a really special and really wonderful book. And I think I got this for Christmas when I was a teenager sometime. But this is really something quite special, and it's not a book how you see it on BookTube, I guess, but nonetheless really something this interests you, then you should definitely check it out, and maybe you'll decipher it. Right, so to wrap this up, let's have a look again at all the beautiful spines. And I'll make like a thumbnail, maybe like this, like, ugh. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and thank you to everybody who subscribed recently. It's been very gratifying to see those numbers skyrocket. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for your comments also, and see you in the next video.